Okay, let's dive right in. We're talking about taking your application from just being online to being everywhere, and I mean instantly. Welcome to our explainer on Azure Front Door. This is the big question for anyone with a digital presence. You've built something amazing, but is a user in Tokyo having the same lightning fast experience as someone in Toronto? If there's even a little bit of a delay, you've got a problem on your hands. And trust me, it's a serious problem. Latency isn't just a minor annoyance, it's a user killer. Then you add in the constant threat of cyber attacks, and it becomes crystal clear that we need a much better front door for our applications. So let's explore how to build one. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the challenge, then introduce our solution, Azure Front Door, and then we'll really break down why it's so powerful, how it all works, and finally, what it all means for you.
First up, let's really frame the problem. Why is this so darn difficult to get right?
Well, the public internet is a bit like a city with totally unpredictable traffic. Your data packets are just trying to get from your server to a user on the other side of the planet. And along the way, they're hitting all these digital traffic jams, taking long detours, and ultimately delivering a pretty inconsistent experience. That delay, that's what we call latency. So how do we build a private global express lane around all of that traffic? Well, let's meet the solution. At its heart, Azure Front Door is Microsoft's modern cloud CDN. You can think of it as a really smart global entry point for your application. And it doesn't just deliver static content like images, it also accelerates all the dynamic stuff, the interactive parts of your app, by routing it all through Microsoft's massive private network. And its mission really breaks down into three key pillars: building modern internet-first apps, making them unbelievably fast for a global audience, and wrapping them in a super strong layer of intelligent security. Okay, so we know what it is. Now let's dig into the why. What makes this service so effective? Well, it really comes down to scale and some seriously impressive numbers. First, let's talk scale. Azure Front Door leverages over 118 edge locations. Now, these are points of presence that are strategically placed all over the globe, getting your content as close to your users as physically possible. And those edge locations, they're spread across 100 metro cities. This isn't just about covering countries on a map. It's about being present in the major population and internet hubs where your users actually are. The result of that massive scale is, well, it's staggering. By using Microsoft's private network instead of the public internet, you can improve latency for your applications by up to 3 times. Yeah, 3x. That is an absolute game-changing performance boost. So, how does it pull off that 3x improvement? First, it routes traffic over Microsoft's private network, which is like a private highway system avoiding all that public internet congestion. Then it uses clever tech like Anycast, which automatically sends users to their closest entry point. It also uses something called split TCP, which breaks the connection into smaller, more efficient chunks. And finally, it handles the security handshake, the SSL encryption right at the edge, which speeds things up even more. But performance is only half the story, right? An application without this kind of protection is just exposed. But with Front Door, it's behind a shield. This includes a web application firewall to block common hacks and platform-level protection against massive distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks, where attackers try to overwhelm your app with junk traffic. This quote really captures the whole philosophy. It's not just about blocking known attacks. It's about adopting a zero-trust model. In simple terms, this just means never trust, always verify. Every single request is checked, which protects you not just from the threats we know about, but new ones too. Okay, so it's fast and it's secure. But is it hard to use or crazy expensive? Let's look at the how. Let's just break down the key features. For performance, you get intelligent load balancing. For security, how about free SSL certificates that automatically rotate themselves? For developers, it plugs right into existing DevOps tools. And for cost, the pricing model is simplified, removing that separate data transfer charge from Azure to Front Door. And getting started is actually pretty straightforward. You define your domain, you tell Front Door where your application backends are, and they can be anywhere, by the way, not just in Azure. And then you can immediately start analyzing and monitoring traffic with all the built-in tools. Ultimately, this is all about simplicity. By unifying your static and dynamic content delivery into one service with a single cost model, it just removes all the complexity of trying to build a global delivery network on your own.
So we've seen the what, the why, and the how. Let's wrap this all up with the key takeaway.
And look, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. With different tiers available, from standard to premium, you can pick the exact feature set that matches your specific performance and security needs. And that brings us to the final question. This isn't just about technology. It's about business impact. When every single user, everywhere, gets a fast, secure, and reliable experience, what new markets could you enter? How much could you improve your user satisfaction? That is the real power of building a better front door.